Woo, it's hot. So Sony has finally released a 4K mirrorless APS-C sensor size camera with a flip screen. It's not the a7000 that I was looking for, but this a6400 does look promising. A lot of reviews and previews are out for the Sony a6400, and there are a lot of criticisms aimed toward this camera as well, considering that Sony is marketing this as an entry-level camera for vloggers. The first being the fact that when you flip the screen up, if you put an external mic by the hot shoe, it's blocking your screen, so what's the point? For me, I look at that, if there's a will, there's a way. There are so many Sony users that are vlogging with the a7 III and other Sony cameras that don't even have the flip screen. They've just been vlogging like this the whole time, and they get by. So now you have the flip screen. Again, Sony users, if they want to use that camera, they will find a way. There's so many of them that they're showing that they just buy a little bracket that they mount to the bottom, and then they mount the mic to the side of the camera. They can still see themselves in the screen while the mic is mounted to the side of the camera. Yes, this is another additional accessory that you're going to have with the camera besides the external mic, but again, there are workarounds. If there's a will, there's a way. Also, surprisingly, the audio quality on all the videos that I've seen, the internal audio quality of the Sony a6400 sounds really good. I was surprised at how good that sounded when people were just vlogging using their internal audio. So maybe if you don't want to invest in that little bracket to the side, you could consider trying out the internal audio of the camera when you're vlogging with that instead of putting an external mic on top, and then again, your screen won't be blocked. Now, the other criticism I have a personal issue with, and that is the lack of in-body image stabilization. Now, when I think about running around vlogging, you're on the go, you're on the move, you want a camera that has in-body image stabilization that can take all that bouncing up and down so your footage doesn't look that jerky. To get the full use of all the lenses that are available for Sony on APS-C, a lot of their prime lenses don't have any optical image stabilization. So if you're going to use something like, say, this, the Sigma 60mm f1.4 lens on that camera, which this lens does not have image stabilization. So that's going to be an issue for vloggers. It makes me think about the Panasonic G85 or the Panasonic G9 or the GH5. And on the Sony camp, I think about the a6500. They all have in-body image stabilization to deal with this. There's actually 4 issues with this camera. The other 2 would be the battery is the same one that's in the a6300 and the a6500, which is a small crappy battery that doesn't hold a charge too long when you're recording 4K. It can't compete with Sony's bigger battery that you would see in the a7 III, those Z batteries that can hold a charge for a long time. And then of course the other issue is concerns about overheating, which the a6300 had a lot of issues with. Now, I've watched several early impressions and reviews of this camera, and I would say the 2 main ones to watch is one is from Julian Solomita and one is from Jenna Ezerick. So on the one hand, I'm glad that they've gotten rid of the 30-minute recording limit that they have on all of their other mirrorless cameras. But then I was wondering, what's the point of being able to record unlimited 4K if the battery can't keep up? What I liked about Jenna's video is she's the only one that I've actually seen someone take their a6500 and compare it with the a6400 when it comes to battery life. So she did a recording at the same time, and the a6400 actually has better battery life than the a6500 using the same battery. I don't know if it's because she still had in-body stabilization still turned on the a6500, why the battery from that drained faster. But at that 30-minute mark, when you saw that the a6500 stopped recording and then the a6400 was still going, you could see that the battery life for the a6400 was still at that 50% marking, which is pretty good, which theoretically means you could get about an hour of recording 4K footage before you need to change the battery, which is nice. And because she recorded that long, at least in her controlled environment, and with other videos that I've seen, I haven't seen anyone talk about yet or experience showing overheating with this camera. But when I think about the practical usage of recording more than an hour, I don't think you'll be vlogging at that point. Probably you'll be in a controlled environment doing some type of interview, and at that point there are so many different options to keep the battery life up on the a6400 so that you can record until your SD card fills up. Now getting to Julian's video, what I liked about his video is he was actually really going fast. I mean, in some of the other people who highlighted the camera, they were walking really slow with their vlogs, but he was actually moving at a good pace, and he used several types of lenses. Two of them I think had optical image stabilization, and one of them he actually used with a prime 24mm f1.4 lens, which has no optical image stabilization. So yeah, that camera, you could see all the jitters, and it does have a lot of rolling shutter, just like the a6300 and I believe the a6500, although I think the a6500 addressed it slightly, if I recall correctly. But yes, a lot of wobbles when you pan side to side, and a lot of jitters going up and down. So it made me think, well, damn, you want a GH5 or a G85 or a Panasonic G9 to address this if you don't want that in your footage, or against the Sony a6500. But then I thought about it, for a vlogger, you want great autofocus, so Panasonic probably won't be your first choice. And if you want to get your shot in focus, the a6400 really shines, because Sony has been bragging that this is the best autofocus in any mirrorless camera to date, and they'll be updating their higher tier cameras, the A9, the A7 III, and with a firmware update, which will also improve their autofocusing capabilities as well. In practical usage, if you look at how Julian did his video, at the end of the day, if you can tell a good story, and that's what these vlogs should be, a well-told story about your day-to-day activities, if you can keep it captivating, you can look past the shortcomings of the camera that you're using and just be hooked on the story that's being told. I mean, some of the best shots for me was actually when he was using the prime lens. At that point, he slapped the Sony a6400 to do 120 FPS at 1080p, so you got some nice slow-mo footage, which helps with the shaking. And then he also cut it up nicely with some music and everything, and it was a really nice cinematic part. I did not feel like, whoa, look at that footage bounce up and down. So really, in the hands of the right user, you can make the a6400 work for vlogging. And even though Sony's not advertising it, I think it'd be good to use for an in-studio setup. If you want to make sure that, say if your camera is far away, like right now my GH5 is pretty far away, and I'm praying that the autofocus is working good at this distance. I don't really know, I'll find out in post. And because the a6400 also has that mic jack, you can just plug in a cable and put your external mic like this at a good distance away from the camera. And in this scenario, just saying within a studio, a controlled environment, the a6400 would work great. And you probably won't have to worry about focusing issues, because the autofocus in the a6400 is supposed to be really good. So yes, I think the a6400 is gonna sell pretty well. It's at a nice price with that 900 bucks. A small issue people have been complaining about is, oh, it's only one SD card, but come on guys, under 1,000, you need to spend about 300 bucks more for the G9 to get 2 card slots. At the 2K price point, sure, complain then. Canon, what the heck? EOS R, 1 card slot. Nikon, 1 card slot. Come on, guys. So yes, I think the Sony a6400 will do good at this price. 900 bucks, it's a nice price. You get that 18 to 135mm lens. I think it's a nice camera setup. Now I'm gonna end off on 2 additional thoughts that this camera made me think about. Is one, Sony, you were really overcharging with that Sony RX100 Mark VI. $1,200 on release date? Come on. I don't see why you would dare keep that thing above $1,000 when you have an APS-C sensor size camera with better low light capabilities, far more options for how you're gonna capture your footage, and it has a mic jack, which those RX100 cameras don't have. But you might say, oh, but the RX100 comes with a zoom lens on it, so that's why it can like match the price. But you spend 1,300 bucks, you have that 16 to 135mm lens with an APS-C size camera, the a6400. Those RX100 cameras, to me, overpriced for point and shoots, just really overpriced. The next thing I think about is Samsung. You guys are freaking idiots. In 2015, you released this NX500, an APS-C 6K compressing down to a 4K image mirrorless camera with a flip screen you had 3 years ago. Granted, it didn't have a mic jack, but by now you guys could have the NX700 And on your top tier end, you would have the NX3. And you guys would actually be having a lot of competition, maybe crushing the competition or going toe-to-toe with Sony right now on the APS-C side of things. But I guess we're gonna have to leave that up to Fuji now. But it just makes me think such wasted potential by just getting rid of your camera division. But yeah guys, that's it for now. What do you think of the Sony a6400? Is it too many compromises to get it to work as a vlogging camera? Are you interested in buying it? I think it's pretty interesting, and maybe me and my business partner might consider getting it. I think he's more interested in a top tier Canon camera because he loves Canon cameras. So I don't know, I'd have to convince him about this, but we'll see. But anyways guys, that's it for now. I am out.